Hey, if you've been thinking about starting a nonprofit or you've already started a nonprofit, but you're still confused with who does what, like who manages the money, who runs the board meetings, who does all the marketing? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break down all the different roles that are to be played running a nonprofit organization, but I'm also gonna explain the different responsibilities associated with these roles. So whether you're an executive director, the founder, a board member, a staff, or just a volunteer, this video is gonna explain all the different responsibilities that are to be played while running a nonprofit organization. What's going on, guys? My name is Timothy Wright, the founder and CEO of the Nonprofit Launcher. We are back again with another video. And in this video, we want to discuss nonprofit roles and responsibilities. Now, before we get into it, if you're an executive director, a founder, or the president of the organization, I'm going to recommend that you watch this video to the end just so you can really understand all the different roles that are to be played while running a nonprofit. Now, you may not actually contribute to all the work that's been done in all these particular roles, but it's important for you to understand these roles. Why is that? It's because we want to inspect what we expect. We want to inspect what we expect, but it's hard for you to inspect what you expect when you don't understand the expectations of this current role. Does that make sense? So this video is definitely for you. All right, so the very first role that we want to discuss here is the founder of the organization. Their key role, they're going to be the visionary as well as the initiator of the organization. And very simply, your responsibilities are going to be to develop the initial mission statement, the vision statement, as well as the purpose of the organization. If you haven't done this already, I'm recommending you grab our nonprofit starter kit. It's free, and do a community needs assessment. In this community needs assessment, you will come up with your vision, your mission, and your purpose statement. Now, another responsibility is also going to be recruiting your initial board member. So that's something that you want to be mindful of right now. Who are you going to recruit to be your board? This is something that you have to go out and network with. This could be who you're going to recruit through your cell phone, who you're going to recruit in your Instagram DMs, or who you're going to recruit through text messages, or through picking up the phone. More than likely, the initial board of directors will be people that you already are familiar with. Next, your responsibilities are going to be to lead the early stages of forming your nonprofit organization. So this obviously means filing directly with your state, getting all your policies and your procedures created, your bylaws, your EIN number, filing your 501c3 application, short form or long form, your charitable solicitations filing. Any initial filings in the beginning stages, more than likely the founder, that's going to be your responsibility. And of course, if you need an assistant with that, the Nonprofit Launcher team can not only create all your policies, your procedures, and your bylaws, but we will completely file your nonprofit all done for you. Check the description for more information. Now, once the nonprofit is established, the founder will then transition into a different role, whether it be the executive director or board chair, whatever it may be, which leads us to the second role to be played in the nonprofit space, and this is being the executive director. The executive director. So this individual will be responsible for overseeing all the programs, all the staff, all the services, implementing strategic plans set by the board, managing finances, HR, and legal compliance. Now also, if you're the executive director, you want to make sure you're staying up to date with reporting regularly to your board. So any initiatives, any upcoming events, any information that needs to be passed to your board, that's going to be the job of the executive director. You'll also be representing the organization publicly, which means that you'll be the public speaker essentially for the organization. You'll be the one who speaks on behalf of the organization. If there's a large event and there's a bunch of different nonprofits and their president and the executive director is there speaking on behalf of the organization, that will be you. And then the last key responsibility is focusing on fundraising and relationship building with the donors. You know, this is really important. I always tell our clients that people support people more than they support businesses, but they love supporting businesses that involve the people they support. So I say that to say that you want to continuously establish new relationships, but you also want to ensure that you're nurturing the relationships of your previous clients, which are already going to be your donors. And then role number 3 is going to be the president. Now, in a lot of cases, the founder is also the executive director, and the executive director is also the president. And just so you know, if you're wearing multiple hats, that's completely fine. The IRS won't penalize you for being the executive director and the president. In most cases, actually, you probably will wear multiple hats, as well as other individuals that are working within your organization. That's completely fine, which is why you want to know all the different roles that are to be played while running this organization. But you may be the executive director and still have a president of the organization. But just so you know, in most cases, if you're the executive director and then you have a president, the president is also going to be the board chair. So the next 2 responsibilities are going to be the president and the board chair because they're synonymous. Now, the key responsibilities of this role is going to be overseeing all the board meetings meetings and governments, ensuring the board fulfills its duties. Often they're going to be the liaison between the board and the executive director. So as the company starts to expand, the gap between the board members, the staff, and the volunteers, they're going to continue to grow as the executive director has a lot more responsibility to obtain and maintain, keeping an organization compliant. So the president or the board chair, they're going to be the liaison between the board members and the executive director. So being a board chair and the president, you want to understand that setting the board meeting agenda, that's also going to be your responsibility. Leading board evaluations. So maybe you guys need to change your board over time. So maybe each individual only has a year on the board or 2 years, or it doesn't matter what it is. You can remove them at any time you desire, but you want to have someone like the president and or the board chair who is evaluating what the board members are doing to determine if you guys are able to grow based on their efforts. Now, the president or the board chair will also be evaluating the executive director. The reason being is because the president and or the board chair is going to be essentially in charge of the board, and the board is going to need to vote on the amount of income that the executive director is making. So with that being said, this individual, the executive director, needs someone to evaluate their work and their contribution to the organization so that they can take that to the board and determine how much income should the executive director be making. And then last but not least, the board chair or the president could also step up to be the spokesperson. So although the executive director would normally be the individual who's speaking up publicly on behalf of the organization, the president or the board chair could also be that individual as well. All right, and then the next role that we have is going to be a board member. Now, with a board member, the key role is understanding that in most cases, about 8 times out of 10, your board member will be volunteering leaders. Volunteering leaders who provide governance and oversight for the organization. So of course, board members can be paid. And in some cases, board members should be paid. And then in some other cases, board members will be paid. But I want you to understand that in most cases, your board of directors are volunteers. Now I know because a lot of us come from employment that it's a different perspective and a different mindset when someone is exchanging their time. You believe that because they're exchanging their time, they deserve some type of money. But I just want you to understand, this is no disrespect to you. That's only the employment mindset that you still have in your spirit. But once you understand the nonprofit space and the business space, in business, people are only paid based on their value, not their time. Can you write that down so you understand that? Like, it doesn't matter how much time you're contributing to your product, programs, or services. The time you contribute to your program or services does not determine how much you charge. Absolutely not. You could spend 1 year on a product, and if it's not good, it is not worth $1,000. Does that make sense? So with that being said, the cost must be equivalent to the value, not the time spent. The cost must be equivalent to the value, not the time spent. When people are working with your organization or for your organization, you pay them based on their value, not the time. Now, the responsibilities of a board member can be a multitude of things. So they could be in charge of overseeing some different finances or different legal obligations. They could also be in charge of the strategic growth of the organization. They may be in charge of increasing the organization's mission, changing some of the plans, or managing the policies. You may have a board member who's in charge of fundraising. And in most cases, you would want your board members to be contributing to the organization as well. So if you're having an event coming up or a gala coming up, we also expect for the board members to believe in what it is that we're doing enough to make a contribution. We're not saying they need to donate their whole check. We're not saying they need to donate thousands of dollars, but just any type of contribution to show that they're contributing also financially to the organization. Most times it's not a requirement, but it's definitely something that's expected. Another board member responsibility is to attend meetings regularly and participate actively in the nonprofit's execution. And then also pay attention and evaluate the executive director. And why is that? Because the board members vote on the executive director's income. So that means the board members also going to be paying attention and evaluating the work that the executive director is doing to determine if it's valuable enough for this said salary. And people always ask why the executive director or the founder shouldn't sit on the board. Well, you have your answer now, because the board votes on the executive director's salary. You can't be on the board voting for your own salary. That doesn't make sense. That's called conflict of interest. But if you're just starting, you haven't even got finances yet, you haven't even got donation yet, don't worry. If you need to sit on your board, it's completely fine. As you start to scale and as you start to receive income as an organization, and now the talks are in the works of you possibly being on payroll, you being on salary, now is the time for you to make sure that you remove yourself from the board. But don't be in a hurry. You don't need to do it so soon. They're not going to kick you off for any reason reason, but then also within your bylaws, you can ensure that that doesn't happen regardless of the fact. Now, the next role is going to be the treasurer. Now, this is going to be someone who focuses on the financial oversight of the organization, someone who's going to be monitoring all the financial reports, ensuring proper financial controls and compliance. So this individual is going to be making sure that you guys are staying compliant with how you're spending your money and also how the money is coming in, because just because money is coming in doesn't mean that it's aligned with your mission. And if it's not aligned with your mission, you're subject to pay UBIT, which is called unrelated business income tax. So the job of the treasurer is going to be to ensure that you guys are maintaining compliance with how the money is coming in, but then also maintaining compliance with how the money is being deployed. The treasurer will also be leading audits or any financial committees associated with the organization, and then also advising on budgets and financial planning. So I recommend that the treasurer is someone not only that you trust, but also someone that you respect. You want to make sure that you trust them because you don't want them to have access to funds and they can do something with it. They can put you at risk, put your other board members at risk, put your entire business at risk because they're doing things with no integrity. But then you also want to respect them. And the reason why is because if this is going to be the individual who is helping you with financial planning, the individual who's helping you maintain compliance, you want to respect them enough to listen to them and maybe take their advice or take their opinion about the financial decisions of the organization. If you trust them but don't respect them, yes, you will trust them not to steal from you, but you won't respect them enough to validate their opinions when they have one about the finances of the organization. Does that make sense? So in my opinion, I recommend that the treasurer is someone that you not only trust, but someone you respect. Now, the next role is the secretary. Now, the secretary, their key role is going to be to maintain the organization's records and all documentations. All their responsibilities are going to be recording and distributing board meeting minutes. So anytime you guys are having a board meeting, you want to ensure that your secretary is there so he or she can actually determine how long you guys are spending in the meeting. This is called collecting board meeting minutes. This is something that you want to have recorded and documented every single meeting that you have. By law, you're obligated to have at least one board meeting per quarter. So you want to make sure that's documented. I recommend you have at least one board meeting per month. If you're in the beginning stages and all you guys are still trying to come together and bring your ideas together, the more times you meet, the more effective you're going to be when it's time to launch. The secretary will also maintain records as well as key documents like your policies and your bylaws and all your filing documents. So you may have a Google form that you put all of your policies in, your initial filing document, your 501c3 approval, any documentation you have as far as your organization. I recommend you create a Google Drive and then you give certain people particular access to this Google Drive. So for example, the secretary, you want to make sure that he or she has complete access to this drive or complete access to all the documents just in case they need it. And then their job is to make sure that all the legal documents are filed as required. So you may use a team like myself to get you guys completely set up, but if you didn't and you use yourself, you want to make sure that your secretary is someone that's knowledgeable and educated enough to be able to look over your documents to determine if this is correct. But then you also want to make sure that they know about the annual filings, the annual 990s. If you guys start making more income, there's different 990 forms for different types of income. If you are a private organization versus a public organization, there's going to be a different annual 990 filing form. So you want to ensure that your secretary is the individual who has knowledge about this, but then you want to make sure that they have all the tools that they need to help you guys maintain compliance. So this is another reason why the founder and executive director should know about all the roles and responsibilities going on within the organization. Again, so you can inspect what you expect. So just a couple of more roles here. The next one is going to be the advisory board member. Now, an advisory board member very simply is someone who provides guidance and expertise, but does not have formal governance power, which means that if you guys wanted to vote off someone, the advisory board member doesn't have any say so. If you guys wanted to remove the executive director, or if you guys want to raise the amount of income for the executive director, the advisory board member doesn't have any governance as far as what you guys are doing. Only thing an advisory board member can do is advise. And then lastly, they can act as a brand ambassador for the organization. By the way, every role that I've mentioned for this organization, everybody's responsibility is to be a brand ambassador for this organization. Everyone's job, everyone's goal, one of their goals is to be a brand ambassador, be a walking billboard to help promote the mission, the cause, the products, and the services of this organization. It's important that everyone knows that, which leads us to the next role, which is staff. Now, I'm gonna only speak on general roles. Staff is gonna be a paid employee executing daily programs, services, whatever it may be. This is someone who's paid for their time. This is not a board member, which is in most cases a volunteer. This is not executive director. This is not a president. This is not the founder. This is someone who is an employee meaning they're being paid for a specific task for them to commit to on an hourly basis, whether it's part-time or full-time. And their responsibility is very simply going to be carrying out any specific job description that they were provided, whether it be a program manager, there may be a marketing coordinator, and they're going to be reporting to the executive director or the president. And then lastly, for the staff, just making sure they follow all the rules associated with being an employee, especially like maintaining professionalism and following any standards and ethics that you set forth as a president or the executive director. And then the last role we'll discuss is volunteers. Now, volunteers, they play a very key role with running the organization. As you know, like I mentioned before, your board members are more than likely going to fit in this category as well, as far as being volunteers. This is someone who is very supportive, but also they're an unpaid contributor. Their responsibilities are going to be assisting with events, services, administrative tasks, following volunteer policies and training, representing the organization positively, being a branding ambassador for the organization, and then also reporting any issues or challenges to volunteer coordinators and or supervisors. So coming into the nonprofit space, you probably already heard that volunteers play a very crucial role in the nonprofit space, and people, believe it or not, are always looking to volunteer, whether it be for some type of credibility with their company, with their business, whether it be just to get out the house, or they want an ROI, which is a return on impact. You'll be surprised. Everyone is not the same. Everyone isn't money driven, money hungry. People aren't always looking to contribute to your nonprofit just so they can get paid. The return on investment with their time. Sometimes people are more fulfilled seeing the impact of your organization, seeing how valuable this is in your community. You'll be surprised. I'm telling you, people will show up on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly, on the yearly basis just to be a part of something that's bigger than them. You hear me? Just to be a part of something that's bigger than them, just to touch a different audience that they may not have the ability to touch on their own. This is why people volunteer. And as I said before, run this organization in the beginning, you may play multiple hats. You may be the volunteer, as well as the staff, as well as the advisory board, as well as the secretary, as well as the treasurer, as well as the board member, as well as the board chair, the president, the executive director, and the founder. You may have to play a little bit of all of those roles in the beginning stages, especially if you don't have a huge network. That's completely fine. But what I want to encourage you to remember, that if you want to elevate, you got to delegate. If you want to elevate, you have to delegate. As a leader, I want you to remember me telling you this, especially if you plan on running a 6 or 7 figure company one day. As a leader, you have to be willing to give away power. What I recognize is that a lot of people starting off a business or coming into business in general, they're control freaks. Everything has to be done by them. If it's not done by them, it's not right. They don't trust anyone to do anything if they don't know exactly what's being done. And I want you to know that that's going to be something that hurts you. A leader, a successful business person, man or woman, they give away power. They allow other people's ideas to grow their organization. They allow other people's work ethic, other people's mentality and mindset to stand on top of their vision, their mission, their purpose, and take it to a higher level. So I want to encourage that for you. So I'm hoping this video has been definitely informative. I'm encouraging you to send this to every person that's associated with their organization, whether they're a volunteer, a board member, a staff member, whether they're executive director, they plan on being an executive director or a founder. Send this to them and have them watch this video in full. Tell them at the beginning, hey, watch this in full so you understand all the different roles that need to be played, but also the different mentality behind some of these roles as well. If you're looking for some additional resources, I'm going to encourage you to click the link in my description. You will see our stand store, check out our website, look at our testimonials and our reviews, and you'll see everything that we provide. So before I go, I always want to remind you that I believe in you, I respect you, I admire you for being along this journey. Commit to it, stay focused. We'll see you again soon. I'm signing off. Peace.